guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex and this is the Lily Library. So it's September, guys. It is September. Can you believe it? I am having like a moment where I just am like, where did 2024 go? I'm also excited because we are entering into the spooky season. The temperature dropped. It's been absolutely gorgeous. And so I felt it was time to bust out the pumpkin spice coffee creamer. The Coffee Mate pumpkin spice coffee creamer is the only acceptable pumpkin spice coffee creamer. And I'm just so cozy. I'm so happy that we are entering into fall. So normally I don't do TBRs because my reading tends to be very sporadic, very mood-based. So there is no rhyme or reason to what I pick up. But this month, I definitely have some books that I want to get to, need to get to. And I also will be participating in not one, but 2 reading challenges. So I wanted to talk about it at the beginning of the month in case you would like to participate as well. On that note, let's talk about our reading challenges first. So the first reading challenge I will be participating in is hosted by Justin over at Triumphal Reads. He is my go-to booktuber for all things nonfiction. He's very well spoken and well read, and I definitely recommend you check out his channel. He will be hosting the Science Reading Challenge, which will actually take place throughout the rest of the year, with each month focusing on a different scientific topic. He said he was inspired to start this challenge because of all of the scientific illiteracy and misinformation in the world, and I definitely agree with that. And he said that he wants people to feel excited about science again. And I probably need that infusion of excitement. So I really want to try and do every single month of this challenge and at least read one book each month that pertains to the topic. And in the month of September, the topic is nature with a focus on zoology and botany. So initially my pick was The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs, A New History of the Lost World by Steve Brusada, which Justin himself described as the gold standard book on dinosaurs, and I trust that review. This book has been sitting on my shelf since the paperback publication, I'm pretty sure. So I need to get to it, and I want to. But I recently did my Pittsburgh TBR, which if you haven't seen, I'll link it below. In it, I hauled Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She is a botanist, and the book is about her connection to nature through her indigenous roots. And I think it's part science, part poetry. I need it in my veins. So if I'm feeling ambitious, I'm gonna read both, and I am ambitious. And if you would also like to participate in this reading challenge, I'm gonna leave Justin's original video down below to talk all about the challenge. He also set up a Discord, which is linked in that video, and just check out his channel because he's awesome. Hi guys, editing Alex. Sorry for the jump scare. In this part of the video, the audio does something weird and cuts out. And normally I would just take the entire section out of the video, but I am talking about one of my fellow booktubers. So you get 3 a.m. Gremlin Alex to talk about this lovely woman. And that is Maeve over at Maeve Ever Books. She is the one who is hosting the Readathon that I'm about to talk about, which is the September self-published authors Readathon. I'm gonna link the original video in the description below so you can participate as well. Go check out her channel. And she also has a lot of great recommendations if you don't know where to start with indie authors. Back to normal Alex, boy. And she is doing Self-Pub September Readathon, where she is going to try to read as many self-pub and indie authors as she can in the month. Obviously, the purpose behind this is to advocate for smaller authors and to really give them that exposure, and we love that. We love that. Now, I am committed to one book for sure this month, but there is another one that is coming up later in the video that I also might read. I actually think I'm gonna read both. The one that I'm gonna read first is Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Weisskopf. This is a romantasy, but the female main character is in her 30s, which is a rarity in romantasy. And this book follows her as she is hiding away her child because her child possesses magical abilities that are prophesized to kind of save the kingdom. And unfortunately, her worst fear comes true and she is kidnapped by a rival kingdom. And then she goes on a quest to save her child. And while she is on this quest, she meets up with her ex-lover and prince, of course. He joins her. We can assume they rekindle something. I'm excited to read it. I don't know if it's going to be any good. I'm just so drawn to the idea of reading a book with older characters If you have any recommendations for books with older female main characters, male main characters, please comment them below. Thank you. And then the next books that I know I want to get to, I have picked out some books off of my shelves that have extremely unique premises. I feel like I've been reading a lot of the same lately. I've read some absolutely incredible books, but I think I just want something that feels like wholly unique to me. And this entire thing was kickstarted by this book, which is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buhlman. This is a historical fantasy horror book, which, okay, say no more. And this book is also an indie pub. It follows a disgraced knight who is traveling through the French countryside when he comes upon an abandoned child. And this child foresees that the plague that is currently devastating the land, bringing death and destruction due to illness, will also bring the second war on heaven, and with it the arrival of Lucifer and his fallen angels. The knight is weary, but he enters into a pilgrimage with this young woman, and that premise, it was like an immediate buy. It was an immediate buy, no thought, had to have it. Then I read some reviews which said the writing was gorgeous, it was dark and atmospheric, and I honestly feel like this book was written for me. Religion, medieval knights, unlikely bonds, bodily horror. I have to read this immediately. And I will read it, but I'm actually reading a different book right now, which was also on my TBR, and that is Piercing by Ru Murakami. This follows the story of a couple who is living in Tokyo, and they have a very cookie cutter normal life, apart from the fact that every night the husband goes into his baby's room and holds an ice pick over their head, seriously contemplating, obviously doing something horrific and horrendous. When I read that, I was like, this is gonna be fucking weird. I'm pretty sure that those thoughts then lead him down like a more depraved path. I don't know the extent of it. I just started the book. This is the time. We're getting into the psychological thriller time. So I'm reading that now. So on the TBR, but definitely getting to it. The next book that I want to get to is The Family Fang by Kevin Wilson. Now this book, I must have just missed the boat on. It came out in 2012 and it was actually adapted into a film that stars Jason Reitman and Nicole Kidman, I think. The story actually follows two adult siblings who are trying to distance themselves from their parents because their parents are very extreme performance artists. And this has led to them having a very chaotic and confusing childhood where their perception of reality and their understanding of like love and emotions is clearly affected. But due to unfortunate circumstances, they are forced to return home and kind of confront all of these things. I love a family drama. I love a family drama. I think the idea of also adding this element of art and how far we take it and how much we let it control our lives, and I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I've never really heard of that being explored this way in a book with this kind of family dynamic. So I gotta read it. The next book is bananas. It's American Hippo by Sarah Gailey. This is actually two novellas and I think additional short stories that were put into one volume. And this is an alternative history where the American government has introduced hippos into the American South in the bayou with the intention of them being bred and slaughtered. Unfortunately, they did not take into account just how savage and insane hippos are, and chaos ensues. So essentially, we are now in the Wild West of the South, and we are following a group of ragtag outlaws who are contracted to take back the land from these feral hippos. Crazy, bizarre. I really don't think I need to say anything else. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book. It literally was a random recommendation when I was online book shopping, and it was purchased. The next book that I picked off of my shelf is Pew by Catherine Lacey. This is the story of a small town in the American South who one day find a genderless and racially ambiguous stranger asleep in a church pew. Initially, the community is curious by this individual, but then they begin to become unnerved by their presence. Completely bizarre, and I can't wait to read it. I know it's gonna have something to say, I just don't know what yet. Then I want to read a new release, which is Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. Now, the premise of this is like jumping into your favorite novel, which isn't completely unique, but I think the story of this is unique, and I've never read anything like it. It follows a woman who is seemingly terminally ill, and she uses this fantasy series to kind of escape her reality until one day she finds herself in the story. But not only is she in the story, but she is the villain of the story. Yeah, I honestly don't know anything else, and I don't think I need to. I thought that just sounded so great, so I pre-ordered it, and it's here, and we're ready to read. So those are all my books with kind of obscure plots. And the next section of books that I want to read in September, maybe carrying over to October, we'll see, is dark academia fiction. Now, I don't really read dark academia, but I would like to get into it. And so I have a couple on here that are pretty well known, but they're kind of where I want to start. Obviously, you got to start with the godfather of academia literary fiction, which is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is about a group of friends, and I know a murder takes place at an Ivy League school, and they all go there. That's all I know. I don't know anything else about the premise. I have made it at least like 4 years since this blew up on BookTube, Book Talk, in the internet realm of not being spoiled on this book, and I'm going to continue on that trajectory. And then I want to read another book that everyone is reading, which is Bunny by Mona Awad. Margaret Atwood described this book as John Swift plus Witches of Eastwick plus Kelly Get in Trouble Link plus Mean Girls plus creative writing degree hell. I mean, I know it's about a group of friends at a college and dark, twisty turns. I don't know anything else. So many people have read it and loved it recently that I need to pick it up. The next book that I want to get to is Babel, or The Necessity of Violence, An Arcane History of the Oxford Translator's Revolution by R.F. Kuang. This is another super popular dark academia. I didn't want to look too much into it because I didn't want to be spoiled, but I think this is an alt history where the Oxford's translation department also practices magic. So I think it's going to be fantasy as well. R.F. Kuang has been on the TBR for a while now, and I just really need to get to her. Then the last book that I really want to get to in September is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. The story is about a woman confronting her past and coming to terms with the fact that she was in a relationship that had an abusive power, and this relationship was a student-teacher relationship. Now here's what I'm gonna say. So there's a lot of dark romance happening with like student-teacher relationships. Everybody has their kinks, and I'm never gonna shame anyone. However, I think if you're going to be reading those books, we also need to be either reading or researching the realities of how horrific these relationships are and the trauma that they really do cause when you're with someone who is abusive, and specifically from a person who is a authority figure. I also recommend, if you're not gonna read the book, there is a series on Hulu. It's an FX series. It's called A Teacher, and it stars Kate Mara and Nick Robinson. This explores that dynamic in a way I've never seen before, and it is because the gender roles are reversed, and it is a boy who is a senior in high school and his female teacher who's like in her 20s. And with this gender swap, you know, he has this idea is like, oh, I'm not affected. I'm a man. Like this was great. This was great that this older woman wanted to be with me. But then we see him in the future reflecting back on this relationship and how it's affected all of the relationships he's had and the way he is as an adult. And I just think the series is so well done. Like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with exploring certain fantasies, but understanding the realities of situations like this is also imperative. Wow, leaving this off on a dark note, but that's it. That's my TBR. Guys, I gotta get back to reading because I gotta get back to Piercing by Rue Murakami because it is so weird. But you guys have a wonderful reading week, and I will see you next week. Bye.